playing a chap who, on the face of it, when we first meet him, seems like a very nice, caring individual. But he's not always. I'm curious if you could talk about the dichotomy of trying to know where he's going to end up while still...
Right. Well, that was one of the things that really intrigued me about the role and was exciting to play it. And, there were several more twists and turns in the character that were in there, but, that was in the 2-hour and 10-minute version of the film. He was someone who initially, when you meet him, it seems plausible that he has this scientific study that it seems like it might work. He needs to seem believable. And then there's a point in the story where you think, this guy's just a fucking sadist. And and the experiment isn't working and it's not producing any results, and you think that maybe he's a fraud. And then it starts to work, and you think, well, he may be a sadist, but he's getting results. So we'll hang with it a little bit longer. And then there's that great moment where he doesn't know what's going on, which is always a delicious moment in these types of stories where the expert is now out of their depth. And then you realise that it's all about to go horribly wrong, which is what you're really hoping for all along as an audience member, which says a lot about us as people. We're like, when is this all going to go horribly wrong? Because can we get there? And then of course he completely he gets dismantled and breaks down by the end of the story. So it was a really good journey, Then you realise at the end that he was doing it for possibly good motives, although I suspect that if he hadn't been forced to bring the experiment to a conclusion, that he would have kept her there for a really long time.
See, I almost felt, I don't know whether you care what I felt, but I almost felt that...
I care more about what you felt than what I felt.
The manifestation was as a result always of that torture, and had he just been nice to her, had people just been nice to her, there wouldn't have been that manifestation. I wonder whether that was something that ever crossed your mind while you were...
Yes, I mean, actually, in the original script, he was a lot... he was even more appalling towards her, and he put her under some real psychological and emotional abuse than ended up in the final shooting draft, which I was always sorry to see go, because I mean, the more extreme that stuff is, I think it's more fun to do. But would he have produced that result? Well, I think that it would still have come out because of who she was and what had happened to her earlier. And when you listen, it's information that's thrown into the story, but stuff was already happening around her. So it's possible that he could have gotten stuff from her without it. But then he was impatient and he wanted results, and he's not a good man at all. The man is an egomaniac.
We'll come back to this in a second, but I just want to circle back to the fact that you mentioned there was more left on the cutting room floor.
There's always stuff left on the cutting room floor, always, yeah.
Were you particularly sad to see it go? Is it something
you as an actor, your involvement in the process ends when they say picture wrap, and then you come back. You're re-engaged at this point. But the last version of the script is always written in the editing room, and that's just part and parcel of it. And you don't know what that last version was like because you didn't see it. So, and at the end of the day, the only thing that's important is the story effective? So, and if you were jolted in your seat by it, then the answer is yes. So,
and then coming back to the character being not the nicest of people, you obviously, you're an actor, you are not that man, but you are playing him, particularly in that location, for a long time.
Yeah.
Is there a strain on you when you're doing things like that?
Oh, I thought you said there's a strain in me, on me.
No. Yeah,
oh,
it's
okay.
there.
I thought that's where you were going with it. Is there a strain on you when you're doing it? You know, you're under intense pressure because there's never enough time. And, you know, a movie like this, it looks fantastic, but it was still done on a budget. And that's mostly what the pressure is that nowadays you all barely have time to get one take, you know what I mean? And there's not a lot of time to explore, so you're fighting if just to get a third take, you know? And that's really what the pressure is, that you need to produce usable results the first time, and that is that's difficult because you're normally shooting towards a preconceived idea rather than having, and you don't get the opportunity to make mistakes and discover new stuff. So. And that's what being able to do takes 6, 7, 8, 9 gives you. So, but that's really mostly where the pressure comes from. And then there are certain moments, I will say that, which is probably more in line of what you were asking. In stuff like this, and it was also a similar experience in doing The Ward, the John Carpenter movie, The Ward, where you are torturing somebody. It's really uncomfortable to do, and you feel awful. You feel really guilty, and even though the person is obviously it's acting and they are not going through their real experience, but you do feel terrible when you're having to abuse or torture somebody. You don't feel good, which is probably a good thing. It means that I'm not a fucking psychopath.
Marvellous. Perfect end note. Thank you very much.